Does Trey Lance now make the difference in San Francisco? Because they still say Jimmy Garoppolo, TJ, is going to be the guy there. Mm-hmm. And I agree, because Trey Lance, for however good and how high his ceiling is, hasn't had a bunch of snaps.
Yeah, and the level of competition from North Dakota State to what he's going to face now, I mean, that's a world apart, right?
So, and he has not played forever.
Yeah, so he's got to sit. Jimmy G has to be the starter, you'd assume, and then
there's a thing about COVID that's really helped or not helped with the development of players is the lack of the preseason games. Mm-hmm. Now, veterans don't like them.
I was just about to say, isn't it?
Veterans don't like them. Rookies and, like undrafted free agent guys, fringe players, they need them.
Yeah, 55 men on the draft board there, or the roster need that, right?
They need that to develop. And ownership and front office people, they need that with the third and fourth round picks, because you don't know. I mean, look at the Indianapolis Colts a year ago. They draft Jacob Eason out of Washington, who I think is a prototypical NFL quarterback.
Looks the part.
Mm-hmm. Has
Big
the arm.
Yeah.
But they weren't able to see him develop last year. Therefore, they couldn't rely on him now that Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers are both gone. So they went out and got Carson Wentz.
Right.
Because they just don't know.
Yeah.
There's nothing they have practice, but most of the practice, he was playing scout team quarterback all last year. That's not development time. That's just doing what you're asked to do and be the opposing team's quarterback through that process. People forget that about the pro level. You don't have a fifth-string quarterback playing the scout team quarterback. You have the guy you drafted in the third round doing it.
Right.
Because you have 53 men on the roster. That's why Urban Meyer's going to have to figure that out too. That there's a limited roster space. So they haven't announced how many preseason games are going to be played this year. I think they talked about 2 or 3 with the 17-game season. That would be hugely beneficial for these young players, in particular quarterbacks who are developing. But if the games don't go forward like they did in a year ago, Jordan Love didn't dress for one game last year.
Right.
Trey Lance.
Inactive all 6
Trey
games.
Lance, if Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, Trey Lance, we may not even hear from all year. Mm-hmm. We didn't hear anything of Patrick Mahomes until week 17 because Andy said, "Hey, we're going to sit Alex. We're in the playoffs.
Right.
We'll throw in the young kid and see how much he's learned." And he played gangbusters. And Andy was like, "Okay,
cool.
Now I know what I'm doing this offseason. I'm anointing him the starter and shipping Alex off to the Washington football team."
It was the right move.
And it was the right move, exactly.
Ryan, just one thing. We were talking earlier about like the differences. Can you talk about, because you would know, the difference in just speed, the way the game moves from college to the pro? Because, you're taking the best of the absolute best and putting them now on this pro game opposed.
It was more substantial than I ever thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. My wide receivers were open. What's open in the NFL is much different because of the caliber of talent on the defensive side of the football. Also, in college, I could run out of the pocket, and that 300-pound defensive tackle, he wasn't catching me.
Yeah.
He wasn't dragging me down.
Right.
I remember the first time I rolled out, and you look at Warren Sapp, and he's 325 pounds of just, I don't know what it is. It seems Jabba the Huttish. But it moves like at 4.5. And I was like, I'm like, I'm outside the pocket here. I'm good. And then all of a sudden, whoop, you just get drugged down. And you look back, and it's Jabba the Hutt. And you're like, what? How the hell did he? What?
You should not move that quick, right?
All those words I just said right there. How did that happen?
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me, was just how fast everything was. And then you had these coaches so stuck in their ways. Their ways worked, right? Kevin Gilbride's offense worked for years. In Houston with Warren Moon, in Jacksonville previously with Mark Brunell, he felt comfortable with it, and they stick with it. Jeff Fisher, you watched go through the whole process with Jared Goff. he wouldn't change for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff had one of the worst rookie seasons ever, right? And people were talking about him, oh my God, we made a huge mistake drafting him first overall. Sean McVay comes in and he goes, okay, I'm going to cater what I do to Jared Goff's assets, what makes him the best possible quarterback in my system. Now, ultimately, it still wasn't good enough for him because he shipped him out last year after he realized he couldn't win him a Super Bowl, and that's what Sean McVay wants, like every coach wants. You have to find, but you do not impose your will anymore as a quarterback or as a coach. You are open-minded to what is your most forceful and valuable asset, and it's the quarterback, period, in this league. You get him to do what's best. Because look at the difference between Alex Smith in the Kansas City Andy Reid offense and the Patrick Mahomes Andy Reid offense. Andy Reid was like, he took the governor off the damn golf cart when Patrick Mahomes got in there. He could do whatever he wanted with him. You know, you cater to what your quarterback does best because the game is so fast, and it's going to be a shift, and it's going to be a change. And that's the bigger issue.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.